Hello and welcome to another edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And then there's our deal with Jakob. We've got our bad ideas and our good ideas. So the bad ideas in sport marketing is two. They're actually somewhat related because they really involve the crowd. One was 10-cent beer night in Cleveland, and then the other one was the famous disco demolition night in Chicago.
Okay.
Both of these things brought out people, which was the goal, brought out people that weren't traditional baseball fans, that you wanted to expand your audience and try and attract new fans.
Makes sense.
When you got 60,000 people buying beer at 10 cents a cup, it's a recipe for disaster.
It sounds like it would be.
Yeah, that game got forfeited because the fans went crazy, stored the right fielder, said Billy Martin had to run out with a bat to protect his right fielder.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, the famous Chicago disco demolition night, where they collected all the disco records and put them in a big storage unit. And
Yes,
both of these ideas delivered what they said they would deliver: a bigger crowd, a bigger audience, but a very unruly crowd looking for more than a baseball game in both cases. So it kind of came back to bite them in the butt.
Yes. It seems like it.
Now, for my good idea, we can talk about both ideas. For my good idea, I want to talk about Nike's introduction of the cross trainer.
Okay.
And I've always been fascinated because Nike came onto the scene by explaining to you that you had special shoes for special reasons was a good idea. So they had shoes for cycling, they had shoes for rowing, they had shoes for everything, right?
Right.
And then he came up with this campaign with the cross trainer said, and now you can have one shoe for everything. And it just seemed so counterintuitive to what they'd been trying to do. But at the same time, then they tied it into Bo Jackson, who was playing baseball and football, and had the Bo Knows campaign. And you were able to illustrate all the different things you could do with the cross trainer. So I think that's one of the great sport marketing moments ever.
I have definitely worn cross trainers. I bought many a pair of cross trainers, and you bought me many pairs over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how they came about.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, really neat. So that's one of my favorite things. And also in a similar vein, I think branding Nike with Just Do It was also a genius sport marketing moment. Because Just Do It meant you could, anything you wanted to say, you could do. So I thought that was a brilliant tagline too.
Yeah. Now that's weird because, like you said, they started out. You need this shoe for basketball, this shoe for running, this shoe for weight. These are all the separate shoes you need for everything, which is what separated them and made them a whole brand. And then they were like, you know what? Now here's one shoe that does it all.
Yeah. And amazingly, people said, yeah, you're right. I mean, didn't even debate it. Just went right to it.
Yeah.
Didn't say, hey, you told us we needed special shoes. They said, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Now I just have one shoe to rule them all.
Yep.
Yeah. I always thought the cross trainer in general was like a good all-around shoe. Like a good...
I did too.
Like a
lot
good...
of things you do with it.
Yeah. Like you wouldn't wear it it wouldn't be your basketball shoe or your softball shoe or your baseball shoe. But if you were going to the gym and you were maybe going to, play some 3-on-3, you were good to go.
If somebody asked you to play, you could play in those shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was mainly like, it was your training shoe, not your game shoe. But, it allowed you to, I'm going to play some basketball because a running shoe is tough to play basketball in if you have bad ankles. Or if you don't want to have bad ankles, I suppose.
And the cross trainer, if you remember, came in a low top and a 3/4 top.
Yeah. I still really like the 3/4 top as a shoe. Which I feel like there's much less of these days, but I really like that. So that's my style. I like the 3/4. Not quite the high, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Good for Nike.
So those are my moments.
Wow. Who knew?
Yep, and if anybody wants to see the disco demolition night, it's on YouTube. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if the 10-cent beer night is on YouTube either. That somebody would have filmed that and they have it floating around. But the disco demolition night is, there's been an and he's 65, or they do it every year on the anniversary. It's pretty interesting stuff. I mean, the whole rationale and the whole reason it came about, and it just got out of hand.
But again, in the moment, seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, but Ted said beer night was due from the start. That's just a bad idea in general. You know what you're going to. I mean, the disc of demolition night, you could argue he didn't know exactly what you were going to get.
Right.
But Ted said beer night, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a bunch of drunks.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a bunch of people that are like, 10-cent beer, let's just go.
When you put a big crowd together that's fueled by alcohol, then you got a mob mentality.
Yeah, that sounds insane, but, well, they don't do it anymore, I guess. I guess they learned.
Yeah.
Wow. Well.
A moment in the Little League World Series, Hawaii won today. They gave up no runs in the last 17 innings of play.
It's pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive. And they beat a very, very good South Korean team. And it was a pleasure to watch. It was the first pitch of the game went for a home run.
Well,
and so it was an exciting game, so well done. And again, the Major League Baseball night last Sunday night after the show was an amazing night. Again, the way the ball players related to the kids, the way the kids related. It's definitely the best thing baseball does all year long. They just need to figure out something besides that to relate to kids.
Yes. Well, I guess because we've spoken about it before, I saw a politician finally give. Did you see Beto O'Rourke from Texas? Did you see his stance on the players kneeling?
No, I did not.
If you haven't seen it, and this is to the audience too, you need to look it up because this is maybe the best I mean, again, I have no idea if it was set up or whatever it was, but his response was very thoughtful. And it was just the most, I mean, basically, I'll give him a quick sum up. It's worth watching him speak because he's a really good speaker as well. But someone in the crowd said, I'm very against it. I think it's very disrespectful. And he said, I'll give you two answers, a short answer and a long answer. The short answer is it disrespectful? No, it's not. And he went into a long talk. He talked about Rosa Parks. He talked about the Freedom Riders. And his long answer was, but he stressed, he's like, just because you and I disagree on this, it doesn't make either one of us any less American. It doesn't make either one of us right, either of us wrong. We're both entitled to our opinions. But I happen to believe that in this country, if we have unarmed people being shot in this country at an alarming rate, he's like, people need to be able to stand up and say something about it. He's like, in a peaceful protest during the national anthem, when people are focusing on the game and to remind them that there's other things in this world they need to think about, is a great place to do it. But again, I would recommend you watch the actual speech because it's really, really good. And I just thought he summed it up wonderfully.
Good.
And he's, of course, battling Ted Cruz for the seat in Texas. So, we'll see how that goes.
Let's hope he wins then.
Yes. Let's hope so.
I'd be hard-pressed to find three things I like less than Ted Cruz.
It's true. And like I said, this guy he seems like the kind of person you would want in charge. Somebody that would listen, at the very least, listen to both sides and have a discussion and not an argument, which is very difficult to have these days.
No, you want listening and you want dialogue. Those are good things.
Yes. And respect to the other person on the other side, which is what I thought really helped him sell it to everybody in the audience. It was really nice. It was a nice moment. And I guess it sort of leads us into our NFL, AFC South and NFC South breakdowns.
Yeah.
And I figured let's start with the NFC South because you were located in one of the cities of an NFC South team, and I'm located in another city of an NFC South team. So it seems appropriate. Obviously, Tampa and New Orleans, respectively.
I think it's going to be a very, very, very competitive division.
Agreed.
But I think New Orleans wins the division.
I think even with Mark Ingram's suspension...
Despite the fact that Sports Illustrated picked Atlanta to beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
Did they really?
I still pick New Orleans to win the division.
I would say, I think New Orleans, and I'm not being biased because I live here now and I've gone to a few games and met some people, and I get mistaken for their punter constantly because we go to the same gym and we live in the same, or his wife goes to the gym I go to. And I've had to constantly tell people that, no, I'm not Tom. Because it's a tall beard hair thing, but it's sort of weird.
Yeah.
But I just think you have a young defense that came on last year and they looked fantastic, and they're all back this year. Even with Ingram out, you've got Kamara, Drew Brees. I think the Dome gives you an excellent home field advantage. So I definitely see New Orleans winning that division. I think, as you know, I think I probably discussed this on the podcast. I've never been a big Matt Ryan fan. I just thought it's weird to call a guy Matty Ice that never really accomplished anything or has shown any sort of ice in his veins sort of a person. So I've always sort of held that against him. They do have a nice team, and I think they'll definitely come in second. Because, again, when you have Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman, that offensive line, and they've got some speed on defense now, I think they're going to be tough to beat. I think Tampa is easily the worst team in that division. I don't know what you do if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You spent a high pick on Jameis Winston, and I think you can argue...
Jameis Winston's had a very successful preseason. Now he's going to have to sit out the next 3 games.
Yeah, he's going to sit out the next 3 games.
But I think he's 30 for 40 with 4 touchdowns in the preseason.
Right. And again, when he's on, he's fantastic. But much like our favorite quarterback up in the north in Pittsburgh, he has a tendency to throw some just,
god-awful picks.
Where you're like, you're looking around on the replay and you're wondering, who were you throwing that ball to?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously his off-the-field stuff all the way back to college, it seems like he just still has either some really poor judgment or really poor people around him. Because he just cannot stop doing stuff.
And then I don't expect much more out of Carolina either. I don't think Carolina finishes 500.
No, I actually watched a tiny bit of that game today, and between McCaffrey and Samuels and Cam Newton's an incredible talent, obviously, and you got Funches and Greg Olsen. Like, I think the big thing with them is their offensive line is pretty terrible to begin with, and I think they've had some injuries this preseason as well. And I find them to be somewhat of an anomaly. Like, it seems like they should always be better than they are. And then when they're really good, they probably shouldn't be quite as good as they are. But I just don't see it. I think that, from an organizational standpoint, top to bottom, coaching, quarterback play, I think that New Orleans and Atlanta are just head and shoulders above the rest of that division.
I agree. I think they're the class. I think they're both in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And over in the AFC, the South is a very loose definition of the word South, as we have Jacksonville, Tennessee, which makes sense in the South. I guess you could argue Houston, even though it's sort of the Mid-South, would be the South, and then you have Indianapolis in there for some bizarre reason.
I know, it makes no sense.
None whatsoever.
It's like the leftover division.
And obviously Miami has a tradition of being the AFCs for a long time when there was fewer divisions, but I mean, they should be in the South. It's Miami. They're the southernmost team. And yet they're in the East. I know they're also technically on the East Coast as well, but I think you'd argue that they're more southern than they are eastern. At least as far as the way that
I would argue that.
The way that the schedules break down. I think the AFC South is a very intriguing division. I don't think Indianapolis is going to be very good.
Are you going to pick Jacksonville to win?
I'm not. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and pick the Houston Texans. They've got, J.J. Watt, arguably one of the best defenders in the last probably decade. He's back, looks healthy, seems healthy. You still got Merciless, and you just have an insanely good defense. You got, as those Jacksonville. But then on the offensive side, you've got Will Fuller, DeAndre Hopkins, and of course, Deshaun Watson. And I know it's been a very small sample size of Deshaun Watson, but he put up Madden-like football numbers last year until he got hurt. Now, obviously, he plays the way he plays, and that knee injury can be tough to come back from. And he's he's not frail by any stretch, but he's not a sturdy quarterback, you wouldn't say. And you always worry that, if he gets hurt again, that it's Tom Savage or whoever it is coming in and that team goes right down the toilet. But I like the Texans to come in first. I think Jacksonville's going to regress a little bit. You still have Blake Bortles a quarterback.
Jacksonville's defense is really, really good.
They're really, really good. But the last time we saw...
40 points on them in a loss.
Yeah, I was about to say, the last time we...
Maybe as good as we think they are.
Yeah, the last time we saw them, they got destroyed. And then Tom Brady had no problem moving the ball against him either.
No.
And Jalen Ramsey has done a lot of talking all summer long, so we'll see how much he can back that up. As he did not all but praise for most of the quarterbacks in the division, including some that haven't even been in the division for very long. If you look at Josh Allen. I think Tennessee is going to be disappointing again.
From what I saw, Tennessee after the Steelers game, when it took them 4 quarters to cross the 50 playing against the Steelers' third, fourth straight defense. I think they're going to be horrible.
I don't know if he's going to develop into one, but of the other quarterback that was taken, and I guess this is, we talked about Jameis Winston, the other quarterback that was taken around him obviously was Marcus Mariota. And he just seems very limited. He seems like a really nice person in all the interviews, but I just don't see a great quarterback in him. And I think you've got to have one in this league. I mean, obviously, the argument would be, Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls, Flacco's won a Super Bowl, and we just watched Nick Foles win a Super Bowl. But I think those teams had phenomenal teams around them, and I don't think Tennessee has that. So I'm picking Houston, Jacksonville, Tennessee, and probably Indianapolis coming in last. And my only hope for Indianapolis is that Andrew Luck stays healthy the entire season.
You know what? I watched some Indianapolis highlights. I'm going to pick Indianapolis third.
Okay.
Because I think what Indianapolis can do is going to be a whole. Oliver Luck is now going to run a West Coast offense. He's going to be dump and chunk. He's going to get rid of the ball quickly. And that's what I think he's going to do. And he looked fairly good doing it. So
he did, and he even took off running. He ran a play that looked, he's still in that case of I was nervous for him. I'm obviously not a Colts fan or an Andrew Luck fan. I do like that people joke that he sounds like Andre the Giant when he talks, and he kind of does. He's got that very deep, weird voice. But I just don't. I want to see him be healthy. He was supposed to. You want to see great athletes play sports, and he looked like he was supposed to be the next one. And he's just the last 2 seasons have basically been lost seasons for him. And it'll be nice to see if he can stay upright because so far he just hasn't. It's been very, very sad.
It's been very disappointing. I mean, he missed a lot of time. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what goes on.
And again, I think part of it is
defensively they don't have much.
No. And again, you look at that team, and I think that's a team. I mean, obviously, I've never been a big fan of their owner. That's a clear case of nepotism gone wrong. But I just think their front office has done a bad job of putting, using their picks on it because they don't seem to have a lot of talent on that team, especially considering the last 2 seasons where they've been picking. There just isn't a lot of it. So,
Yeah. So do you see Houston making a run in the playoffs, or you see them making playoffs and then exiting?
Well, obviously, being as biased as we are on this show, I don't really want any team to make a run in the playoffs outside of Pittsburgh. So, and there's not that many games in the playoffs, so I'm hoping nobody makes a run.
Yeah, but realistically, do you think Houston wins a game in the playoffs, or do you think they win 2 games? What do you think they do?
I think if Deshaun Watson is healthy and J.J. Watt is healthy, they're going to be in an AFC Championship game.
Okay.
But again, both those guys, those are big ifs. Both now and moving forward.
Very big ifs.
Because J.J. Watt has also missed quite a bit of time these last 2 seasons. But when he's on the field with the rest of that defense, he just gives them an unprecedented level of awesomeness. And Deshaun Watson, obviously, like I said, we saw him in a small sample size of 7 games, 8 games last year.
Yeah, he's 6, 5 or 6.
But he put up he looked so good.
He put up ridiculous numbers for the games he played until he got hurt.
And his coach said he was going to be the Michael Jordan of the NFL. And he did not disappoint in those 5 games or 6 games, whatever it was.
No, he did not.
But we'll have to see how he returns to form and if they can keep him upright. And I know their running game is a bit questionable right now, too. But obviously, when you have Deshaun Watson and the guys on the outside, you can probably get away with a lackluster Lamar Miller in the backfield. But we'll see.
And Deshaun Watson's part of your running game.
And but I'm sure they probably want him to stay less of a part of the running game at this point, or at least get down quicker. But I just don't think. I think some guys I was watching part of that Carolina game. You bring it back to the NFC North or South. Cam Newton ran for a first down against the Patriots, leapt in the air, landed on his head. It looked like his shoulder pads sort of engulfed his helmet. It's a very scary sight. He missed 2 plays and then came back in, but I just think some of those guys, like, it's not in their DNA to, like, he's not looking to get down. He's looking to get the first down. And that was in a preseason game, which on one hand you love and you admire because it's like that guy's giving it his all every second he gets. And at the other hand, you're like, just try to be safe.
Well, I think he might have a little chip on his shoulder from some of the comments about him from one of his former receivers, don't you?
Yes, I would say he probably does.
Yeah.
But up until he handled it perfectly, up until he didn't shut up about it. Because I liked when he confronted him. He put his hands behind his back. You see the video?
Yeah.
When they played the preseason game. And like I said, if he had left it at that, like he tried to mend the fence, he kept it out of the media, but then obviously he couldn't shut up about it, and he sort of lost his high ground. So he jumped up and down on the high ground and made it go right away. But what can you do?
Not a lot.
No. And other than that, it's been a fairly slow sports week.
The golf thing, the golf tournament this week was anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody finishes 18 shots under, they don't know how tough the course was.
No. You'd assume not very tough.
Yeah. So the Little League World Series is over. College football starts college football actually started on Saturday.
Technically, yeah.
There are 4 games, and saw on social media somebody put out the first rankings now after this 4 teams won. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, like I said, I still, not just because I went to grad school at UCF, and I do recognize them as last year's national championship, but when you have preseason rankings, you are predetermining the outcome.
Well, wait a minute. Did you see that in the NCAA publication that they listed along with Alabama as 2 teams that were called national champions?
I did not. I don't read that magazine, but that's pretty awesome.
Just came out today. It was in the paper today. I read it.
Nice. Deservedly so. But right now Alabama is listed at number 1. And because they're Alabama, they can lose a game and still play in the national championship game,
Probably.
Whereas if you're starting in the 20s, you not only have to play your best football,
you need a lot of help.
You need a lot of people ahead of you to suck. And it's sort of, like I said, on some level you're sort of predetermining. You're like, well, we know these are the best schools, even though it's 4 years, 3 years for a lot of these players, they're gone. So you don't really know, who was good year to year. You can speculate, and you can obviously be like, well, they get all the 5-star recruits, they've got the best coaches, the best facilities, and all that sort of stuff. When you decide that the SEC is the best conference before the season, they get more points for wins, and they lose less points for losses. So maybe it can never be a fair system with that many teams competing, but it clearly seems like it's very swung towards, a couple, 2 or 3 power conferences where it's very hard for anybody else to even sniff it.
Yep, we get some big games for the first week. We got Notre Dame, Michigan on Saturday night. We got Auburn, Washington, 2 top 10s. I forget who Alabama plays. Like Alabama plays next week too.
I believe they do. It's very exciting. Well,
I'm ready for some football.
Yes. I felt it sort of bubbling up lately. I'm very, very ready. More NFL than college, obviously, but I'm ready.
I need some football.
And
I'll keep my attention in baseball is the Oakland A's. In fact, the Red Sox were swept this weekend for the first time all year long by the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
Who almost had the same record, I think, as the Dodgers.
Yeah. Well, it's always that crazy thing where, like, you've had nothing to play for so long that, you take your foot off the gas a little bit, maybe,
Yeah.
And you got to wonder, like, did you peak too soon? And do you want to be the team that, it's just creeping in at the right time, wins the wild card game, and it's just a fired up team. Everybody's firing all cylinders, ready to go. Although the Red Sox are ridiculously talented, though, so I'm sure they'll be fine. Well, on another note, I think I found my new favorite pizza in Louisiana, or at least in New Orleans right now. And that is the Oak Oven. They obviously have a big, round, Vesuvius-looking, wood-fired pizza oven. You can tell they use all fresh ingredients in the San Marinzo, the the non-bitter tomatoes. They use fresh mozzarella, and it's just a really good pie. And the pepperoni is just really, it's a high-quality pepperoni. It is like American pepperoni, not Italian pepperoni, but it's still really good pepperoni.
Okay.
And
is the crust a little smoky from the wood burning oven?
A tiny bit, but it's like thin and crispy, and it's just, it's just really nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Reasonably priced and fairly quick. And they have the nice open kitchen, too, so you can watch them prepping the pizzas, which is,
always good.
I like when restaurants do that. It just makes you feel better about the product you're about to eat. They're not hiding anything.
Well, I'm excited about a new restaurant coming to Tampa that hasn't opened yet.
And what is that?
I'm a big fan of Al's Finger Licking Barbecue.
I do?
Al is opening up a soul food restaurant.
I see. In the same area?
Yeah, up on, it's going to be in Ybor. It's going to be on 7th. Probably about, it's across from the Columbia, so it's probably about 5 or 6 blocks from his current place.
Okay.
So he'll have 2 different restaurants. I'm excited. So as soon as Al's Soul Food opens up, I will be there that weekend.
Yes. Well, I will say, as good as his barbecue can be, the famous macaroni and cheese, hopefully they come up with a new recipe for the soul food restaurant, because
I hope so.
It's not great. For the listeners at home, it's basically, you have the different kinds of macaroni and cheese, and it's probably the healthier kind, but this is kind of where it's just like boiled pasta with melted cheese. You get like a giant chunk in your little cup. It doesn't have the...
Eat some crust on it, eat something on it.
Eat some crust, and
crawdad tails, add something to it.
Yeah, and then if you add, you just try to get a little creamier than just putting, the cheese to melt in there and just become like a giant hunk of congealed cheese. It's not a good look. Doesn't look appealing, doesn't taste appealing. But that's just on my end.
Well, I want to have a shout out. Tonight is episode 3 of the new season of Ballers. And I've been telling people it's the best year yet. Mainly because they added Russell Brand as a character.
Well, I do love Russell Brand.
And they added an action sports franchise that they're managing now besides football. And they've got a biracial surfer. And it's a really interesting storyline.
Okay.
They still have the NFL stuff, but they have this other stuff, and I think it's a really good addition to the storyline.
I've never watched a single episode of Ballers.
Well, I like this one.
Well, you said Russell Brand, and Russell Brand might get me to watch, I would say.
Yep. Russell Brand is interesting.
Well, we have both been watching Castle Rock, the Hulu Stephen King universe show.
Yes.
I would tell people, if you're going to get into it, be prepared for a slow burn. They are setting up a lot of mood in the first couple of episodes. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, and I thought it was effective.
It is effective. I would say I thought they could have maybe trimmed it down a little bit, but, I guess part of it was expectations. Like, if you're looking, and this will probably be a better question for you than for me, because you're a far more knowledgeable Stephen King person than I didn't notice a lot of, outside of some of the obvious ones, like Shawshank Prison is predominant in the show. And then obviously the actor that plays It in the It movie is one of the main characters in the show. But I didn't notice a lot of other Stephen King call-outs as of yet, for me.
Well, I've only gotten through the first episode.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't seen as many as you have, so I'm sure I will pick up on some things. And we can talk about it in subsequent weeks on the show.
All right, because like I said, I'm a peripheral Stephen King fan. I haven't seen nearly as much as you have. So, there might be names of characters in the town that people would recognize, But it's well acted, and it's interesting, and it's keeping me going. But I would just say the first 3 or 4 episodes are really about setting the tone and putting you in the town. And you'll get some other stuff too, but it's really a lot about building, so you got to be ready to just be on that build roller coaster, if you will.
Well, I also downloaded Whitechapel this week. Have you seen that one?
I watched the first episode. It didn't really grab me that much. The BBC show?
Yeah. So I saw it on BBC, so I taped downloaded the first season, which I think is 3 episodes. So I want to see how that goes.
Okay. Well, I didn't watch that much new stuff this week. I was going to start a new show, but I didn't actually start the new show. But I did rewatch Mad Max Fury Road today. And I got to say, that's just such a good action movie. It's, despite Tom Hardy's, sort of lackluster performance as Max, but like everybody else is phenomenal in that movie, and that it's just nonstop. From once they start going, it's an hour and a half of just action, and yet it's somehow compelling, and you're enthralled. And the fact that they used a lot of real cars and very little practical effects, just amazing. And I did learn something new. You've seen it, right?
What?
Fury Road, Mad Max?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you need to watch it. But there's a guy that, in the sort of the cavalcade of the big boss, the guy that plays the guitar, who's sort of famous from the trailer, he actually has won Tony Awards. I just learned that. So I just thought I would throw that out there in case people didn't know that, because I thought that was a pretty cool fact.
Interesting.
Yeah, because on the thing, like, he's obviously playing guitar and he's a very talented musician, but you wouldn't expect that to be a Tony Award winning actor, but he is. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, I was going to go see the Happy Land Murders, and then I didn't, and then reading a review the next morning, I'm kind of glad I didn't.
It did not review well.
I didn't get a Rotten Tomato score yet.
I've not seen one, but I can't imagine it's a very good one at this point.
No.
Yeah, it got just destroyed in reviews. I kept waiting to see like a couple of, because I feel, with a movie like that, I mean, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Obviously, puppets having sex and ejaculating is not for everybody. Some people are going to find that crude and they're going to just dismiss it offhand. But I kind of hope that, that would be some of the bad reviews, and then some of the other people would, look past some of that and be like, but there's really some funny moments and it's got a very satirical, but that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing just
So bad. I thought the trailer was made way too much of that one scene, the ejaculation scene.
The second one did, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it just dragged it on and on and on and on. I thought that was a major mistake.
Well, in general, trailers have dragged on and on and on. Like, I obviously watch a lot of, growing up with you, I've obviously seen a lot of TCS, Turner Classic Movies and AMC, ACN. And when you watch older trailers, they barely show you anything sometimes.
No, they find one thing to spark an emotion, and that's what usually works.
Right. They give you a tone and a genre, and, because I just watched the trailer for one of my all-time favorite films, Double Indemnity, and it doesn't give it all away.
No.
There's so much more. And you watch some of the older and you watch the new trailers now, like, I watched one for this other indie horror movie, and I feel like I've seen the entire movie. Just in 3 minutes. Like, I've seen all the story beats, I've seen where it's going to go. And, obviously I haven't seen the exact ending, but I've seen just about everything you've got to show me. And I think that just seems to be more and more prevalent with trailers. That's been like the last decade, or even longer for that matter, but I think they need to fix that.
Did you see a trailer for The Nun?
Yeah, I haven't thought those movies were very good, that entire series, because that's the same people, that's the doll people, right?
That's The Conjuring, it's Annabelle.
Yeah.
And now it's The Nun.
Yeah, I didn't really think any of those movies were very good. There was nothing technically wrong with any of them, I just thought they were kind of boring.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's been a while since I've seen, there's only been a couple movies, why can't I think of the one off my hand? There was an Israeli horror movie that was bizarre and sort of weird, and then kind of freaked me out a little bit, but it seems like a lot of modern horror is just very cookie cutter and kind of boring. It's still working for people. Obviously, I know it's making money, so good for them, but I'm just bored. Doesn't do anything for me.
One last sports thought for the show.
Okay.
I am assuming that by Wednesday, Andrew McCutcheon's playing somewhere else.
Oh. Do we have any idea where?
I'm thinking it might be Cleveland.
Okay. I could get behind that. That might be fun.
I think that's going to be, I'm hoping he gets somewhere in whatever team he ends up on. At this point, I'd love to see him go to Oakland. But, wherever he goes, I hope they make the playoffs, and I hope he does well.
I do too. We have a soft spot for Kutch. Was a great Pirate and a great person in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably going to wrap it up for today. I think we went over 30 minutes again. So,
even talk about Pittsburgh, and we went over 30 minutes.
I know. But we are going to be talking about them soon. Probably not next week,
So
though.
which two divisions do you want to do next week?
Well, we have the Central left, but let's save the Central for last.
Okay, let's go west next week.
We'll go West. I'll have to do some research because I know the least about the West, but let's go West. We'll go Garoppolo and his hookers and prostitutes, Russell Wilson, the Raiders, all that stuff. It'll be fun. So
It'll be a
again,
lot of fun.
as always, please rate us on iTunes. Those that contribute to who's already family members now that are contributing, keeping us on the air, like the Jakobs and my mom and everybody else, like thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. And if you know anybody else that would like to contribute, please join the family because it helps a lot. So next week will be episode 80. So until then, see you later.